The New Year's Eve promised to be magical, but beneath the clinking of glasses and festive lights, a meticulously planned retribution was brewing. While everyone else prepared to make a wish as the clock struck midnight, a young woman was orchestrating entirely different surprises for her kin. Quote, 0, an eviction notice. These words landed like a thunderclap out of the blue. Quote 1. Greetings, dear listeners. I'm delighted to welcome you to my channel. I present to you a new and captivating story. Enjoy your listening. Kira first laid eyes on her husband's apartment a fortnight after their wedding. Prior to that, they'd been renting a studio apartment on the outskirts, as Artem claimed living with his mother was impossible. She was a tyrant, perpetually dissatisfied with everything. Kira nodded, believed him, and rejoiced that at least in this regard they'd been fortunate. They could start fresh, without parental oversight. However, by the end of their first month of married life, their funds had dwindled. Artem worked as a manager for a construction company, his income fluctuating unpredictably, sometimes $30,000, sometimes $50,000, depending on which projects closed. Kira toiled as an accountant for a small firm, earning $45,000. The studio rent consumed $28,000, and when it was time to pay again, Artem sighed. Quote 2. Kira clenched her teeth. She knew that quote 3 rarely meant temporary in situations like these, but she had no choice. Continuing to save for rent meant plunging into debt. The apartment turned out to be a 3-bedroom in an old brick building, not far from the city center. It boasted bright rooms, high ceilings, and parquet flooring. Her mother-in-law, Jana Borisovna, greeted them at the door with a forced smile. She was tall, gaunt, with short-cropped hair the color of steel. A chunky chain adorned her neck, and 3 gemstone rings glinted on her fingers. She was dressed in a loungewear set that, as Kira would later realize, cost more than her monthly salary. Quote 4. Jana Borisovna said. Quote 5. Kira had braced herself for worse, but the first week passed relatively peacefully. Jana Borisovna worked at the tax office, returned home late, had dinner, and retreated to her bedroom. They barely crossed paths in the mornings. Artem left early, Kira a little later. Her mother-in-law was the last to rise. Problems began in the second week when Kira decided to cook dinner. She bought enough groceries for 4 people, prepared a roast, a salad, and baked an apple cake. Jana Borisovna arrived, surveyed the table, and pursed her lips. Quote 6, she remarked. Quote 7, quote 8. Kira offered a hesitant smile. Quote 9, quote 10. After dinner, Jana Borisovna demonstratively washed all the dishes herself, clattering the plates loudly. Kira sat in their room, a heavy sigh escaping her lips, feeling a knot of resentment tighten within her. Quote 11, Artem said, lounging on the sofa, engrossed in his phone. Quote 12. But Jana Borisovna didn't get used to it. She began nitpicking everything. The way Kira hung her towel in the bathroom, the fact that the girl supposedly took too long in the shower, that the light in their room stayed on late in the evenings. Electricity is expensive these days, mind you. The shoes in the hallway, the shampoo that smelled too strong. Artem brushed it off. Mom, enough already. Kira lives here. She's not a guest. Precisely. She lives here, Jana Borisovna countered. And she could at least say thank you. Or do you think it's normal to just move into someone else's apartment? Whose apartment? I'm registered here too. Registered, her mother nodded coldly. But I am the owner, and I'm not reminding you of this for no reason. Kira tried to stay out of these disputes. She cooked quietly in the kitchen, cleaned meticulously, wiping everything to a shine, but it wasn't enough. Jana Borisovna seemed to actively seek out reasons for displeasure. One day, she erupted in a scandal because Kira had washed her lingerie along with the towels. Quote 19, quote 20. Kira replied softly, quote 21, quote 22. Artem remained silent. Then the money situation escalated. Jana Borisovna announced one breakfast that since there were now 3 people living in the apartment, the utility bills had increased. And it would be fair if the young couple contributed, Kira asked. Kira was taken aback. Utility bills for a 3-bedroom apartment, even in winter, didn't exceed $8,000. Where did $20,000 come from? Mom, that's too much, Artem began, but Jana Borisovna cut him off. I've included internet, television, the intercom, plus the building's renovation fund, plus water and electricity. If you don't like it, find somewhere else to rent. They paid. After that, Kira had only $20,000 left. A week later, her mother-in-law asked for another $5,000. Allegedly, they needed to call a plumber because the faucet in the bathroom was leaking. It's because of you, she said pointedly. You twist it too tightly. Kira paid again, even though they ended up fixing the faucet themselves, and Artem spent 300 rubles on parts. Jana Borisovna absolutely adored shifting expenses. She would buy groceries, then loudly calculate in the kitchen how much of everything had been consumed, hinting that it would be nice to be compensated. Kira started buying food separately and hiding it in her room, but her mother-in-law wasn't pleased with that either. Kira replied, a lump forming in her throat. Quote 3-1. Artem said nothing. He'd come home from work exhausted, collapse on the sofa, and turn on his shows. Kira tried to talk to him, but he waved her away. Later, Kira. I'm tired. She endured. She thought just a little longer, a couple more months, and they'd save up enough to rent something. But in November, Artem's salary was delayed, and then delayed again. The project fell through, he said. Kira believed him, although there was no way to verify it. All their money went towards utilities, food, and gas. Her $45,000 vanished within 2 weeks. And Jana Borisovna continued to pressure them. She started complaining about her health and hinting that it would be nice if the young couple bought her medicine. Kira bought it. Her mother-in-law asked her to bring groceries from the market. I don't have time, and you're sitting at home on the weekends. Kira brought them. One day, Jana Borisovna demanded that they pay for her taxi to the clinic because her back hurt. I can't be jostled around on a bus. Mom, you have a car, Artem said. It's being repaired, his mother retorted curtly. The car was parked in the yard. By mid-December, Kira realized she couldn't take it anymore. She started looking for options. She rented a room on the far outskirts for $12,000 a month. She decided she would move out alone, let Artem stay with his mother if it suited him so well. But when she hinted at this to him, he suddenly became frightened. He remained silent. And in that silence, Kira understood the most important thing. He would always choose his mother because it was easier. That same evening, she went for a walk and happened to run into her neighbor from the landing, an elderly woman named Klara Mikhailovna. They started talking. The neighbor sighed. Kira was stunned. Klara Mikhailovna chuckled. Kira returned home and lay on her bed. Artem was asleep. She stared at the ceiling and thought, quote, 45. The next day, she took a day off and went to visit her grandmother. Her grandmother lived in the suburbs in a small private house. Her grandmother was strict but fair. Kira told her everything. Her grandmother listened silently, then stood up and took an old folder from the sideboard. Kira didn't understand. I'm saying this house is yours. I'm giving it to you. We'll go to the notary today and get everything properly documented, and then you can decide what to do with it. Sell it and start a new life, or move in here or rent it out. But you'll have a foundation so no one else can ever kick you out of someone else's apartment. Kira burst into tears. She hugged her grandmother and couldn't let go. They went to the notary that same day. The gift deed process took a week. They needed to obtain the grandmother's notarized consent, order a technical plan, and submit the documents to Ross Reister. The house was old but sturdy. The plot was 600 square meters. Its market value was around 3 million rubles. For Kira, that was astronomical money, but she had no intention of selling it. She decided to rent out the house. She found a couple looking for housing further from the city and agreed on 25,000 rubles a month. It felt like a gift from fate. In parallel, Kira started saving. She stopped giving Jana Borisovna a single kopeck. When her mother-in-law once again asked for money for medicine, Kira coolly replied, I don't have any. How can you not have any? You're working. I am working, but my money is my business. Zhana Borisovna turned red. Oh, so that's how you're talking now. Artem, are you hearing this? Artem remained silent, his face buried in his phone. Kira went to her room and locked the door. That evening, she definitively decided to leave. But not just like that. She wanted them to remember. The preparation took 3 weeks. Kira rented a tiny studio for 15,000 rubles, finding the option through acquaintances. She packed her belongings bit by bit, taking things out of the apartment gradually to avoid suspicion. She found a lawyer and consulted about a divorce, learning that if there were no jointly acquired assets and no children, the court hearing would be scheduled 1 month after filing the application, and she would receive the divorce certificate another month later. Kira also discovered something interesting. One day, while rummaging through the apartment documents in an old dresser in the living room, Zhana Borisovna had kept them. She discovered that the apartment was registered to Artem. The privatization had taken place 10 years prior, and he was listed as the sole owner. Zhana Borisovna was registered there, but she had no ownership rights. Kira photographed the documents and showed them to Artem that evening. "Did you know?" He nodded guiltily. "I did, but Mom always said it was her apartment, and I didn't argue. Well, it's awkward." "Awkward," Kira repeated in an icy tone, "and it was convenient for me to endure her rudeness." "Kira, let's not," he pleaded. "Let's not," she agreed, and left the room. At the end of December, Artem suddenly announced that he had quit his job for no particular reason. He said he was tired, wanted to take a break, and would find something better after the new year. "You quit?" Kira couldn't believe it. Kira realized he wasn't even planning to make an effort. He would simply shift everything onto his mother and onto her if he could manage it. Then she decided to act. On December 30th, Kira woke up at 6 in the morning. She packed her last few belongings, put them in a bag, and ordered a taxi for midnight, immediately after the clock struck 12. She spent the entire day in a haze. Zhana Borisovna bustled around the kitchen, preparing Olivier salad and slicing sausage. Artem sprawled on the sofa, watching some show. Kira sat in her room, sorting through documents. 2 envelopes. The first contained the divorce application, which she would file with the registry office on January 2nd. The second was a printout of the EGRP extract for the apartment, confirming that Artem was the owner and therefore he could evict Zhana Borisovna if he wished. At 11 in the evening, they sat down at the table. Zhana Borisovna poured champagne, Artem poked at the salad, Kira remained silent. The clock showed 5 minutes to midnight. Zhana Borisovna turned on the television. The broadcast from Red Square began. Kira took out the envelopes. The clock struck midnight. The first chime. Kira stood up. "Happy New Year, Zhana Borisovna." Her mother-in-law turned, raising an eyebrow in surprise. "And to you, my dear. Here's my gift for both of you." Kira placed both envelopes on the table. "Divorce papers, and an extract from Rose Riester, so that you, Zhana Borisovna, know whose apartment this actually is." Zhana Borisovna snatched the first envelope, tore it open, and scanned it. Her face contorted. "Have you lost your mind?" Artem unfolded the second sheet, the EGRP extract. He read it. His face turned pale. "What is this?" "This is a document confirming that the apartment is yours, which means you can evict your mother from it. I just wanted you to know, just in case." Zhana Borisovna leaped up. "Artem, say something to her." But Artem remained silent. He stared at the extract, bewilderment in his eyes. "Kira, wait, let's talk," he began, but she was already putting on her coat. "There's nothing to talk about. The taxi is waiting." "You can't just leave," Zhana Borisovna shrieked. "You're on my territory. I won't allow it." Kira turned and looked her in the eye. "On your territory, Zhana Borisovna. Read the documents. You are merely registered here. If Artem wishes, he can have you deregistered through the court. So, Perhaps you should have been a little kinder to your daughters-in-law. Happy New Year." She walked out the door without looking back. The elevator arrived quickly. A taxi was waiting for her downstairs. The driver helped her load her bags. Kira settled into the back seat and only then exhaled. "Where are we going?" the driver asked. She gave him the address. A new studio, a new life. On the way, she received a message from Artem. "Kira, do you really want a divorce? Let's discuss everything. I'm willing to change." She didn't reply. She simply blocked his number. 2 months later, the divorce was finalized. Kira filed the application at the registry office by mutual consent. Artem eventually signed. Another month later, she received her divorce certificate, and on the same day, met a friend at a cafe. They had coffee, and her friend asked. Kira shook her head. Clara Mikhailovna had told her. After that New Year's Eve, Zhana Borisovna had a massive argument with Artem, demanding he take her back. When she realized Kira had already left, she turned on him. She blamed him for everything, saying it was his fault she hadn't kept Kira. Then it suddenly came out that the apartment was his. Zhana Borisovna was in shock. She thought she was the owner, but it turned out to be her son. Now she walks on tiptoe, afraid he'll actually evict her. And him? He's doing nothing, staying at home, looking for work, or pretending to. Zhana Borisovna now fusses over him, cooks for him, cleans for him, and doesn't dare to complain, afraid of losing her roof over her head. Her friend snorted. Justice has prevailed. Yes, only it's not my doing. They brought it upon themselves. Kira encountered Artem by chance, 6 months after the divorce at a shopping mall. He was walking with bags, gaunt, wearing an old jacket. He saw her and looked flustered. Kira stopped. "Hi." "Hi." He lowered his eyes. "How are you?" "Good. And you?" "Okay. I found a job in logistics, though the salary isn't great." "I see." A pause. Artem shifted his weight. "Kira, I wanted to say sorry. Really, I understand everything now. It's late, of course, but I understand." Kira looked at him and suddenly realized she felt nothing. No anger, no pity, just emptiness. "Okay, it happens. Good luck." She walked on, not looking back. In the summer, Kira met a new man, a programmer who rented an apartment nearby. They bumped into each other at a coffee shop where they both liked to get their morning cappuccino. They struck up a conversation, exchanged numbers, met again, and then again. No vows, no promises, just two adults who found each other interesting. One day he asked, "Were you married?" "Briefly. Do you want to talk about it?" She shook her head. "Not really. It's in the past." He nodded, understood, and didn't press. She liked that. Her grandmother passed away at the end of October, peacefully in her sleep. Kira went for the funeral and cried so much she couldn't stop. It was her grandmother who had given her freedom. It was she who believed her granddaughter deserved more. After the funeral, Kira returned to the city and, for the first time in many months, felt tired. Tired of being strong, tired of proving herself, tired of starting over. But then she remembered that New Year's Eve. Zhana Borisovna's face when she opened the envelope, Artem's face when he realized she wasn't joking, and how she walked out of that apartment without looking back. Kira took out her phone and texted her friend, "Let's meet tonight. I want to have a drink to celebrate that it's all resolved." Her friend replied immediately, "Of course, I'm proud of you." Kira smiled and thought, yes, she's proud of herself too. 6 months later, she sold her grandmother's house, 3 million rubles. That was enough for a down payment on a 1-bedroom apartment in a new building. Her own, completely her own. Friends came to the housewarming. The programmer also came with a bouquet and a bottle of wine. They sat on the floor. There was still almost no furniture. They laughed, drank, and made plans. Towards morning, when the guests had left, Kira lay down on her new sofa. Tomorrow she'd hang curtains. The day after tomorrow she'd buy a table. Small steps, but moving forward. And before falling asleep, she remembered Zhana Borisovna shouting after her, quote 9-5. Kira smirked in the darkness. No, she wouldn't.